real estate values they're number one determined on supply and demand, right? Economics 101. And right now, the supply is very low and the demand seems to keep on increasing, especially as rates go up. People want to get locked in.
I'm so happy when I get to call my clients that bought a year or 2 years ago and just, here's the new market data for your property. This is what you made. And I mean, just last year here in LA, in the markets we serve, most of our clients appreciated anywhere between 10 and 20, 25%. Hey, and welcome to the first ever episode of Black Belt in Real Estate. Before we get started, I just want to say thank you for being here with us today. We're going to deliver so much value for you if you're interested in buying, selling, or investing in real estate. And today we're going to talk about something that I think most people wouldn't say no to, and that is becoming a millionaire in real estate. I have brought in my mentor, my friend, my CEO, James Suarez here today to talk about the journey of becoming a millionaire in real estate. So James, first of all, thank you for doing this. Super excited to have you here.
Absolutely, my pleasure, Peter. Very excited to be here and hope that we can deliver a lot of value to your audience. Because 90% of millionaires made their millions in real estate. And I would love to be able to transfer any skills and knowledge I have to you and your audience so they too become a millionaire in real estate.
Thank you, James. And that's something that I love with meeting people that have done a lot in their life. They're willing to share. So again, thank you. And if you're watching this, I would suggest that you start taking up paper and pen and start taking notes because we're going to learn some great stuff today. So I think the first question that I want to get into is there's a lot of hesitation for people buying real estate and buying their first home and their first investment properties. Can we just talk a little bit? Why should you buy as soon as you possibly can?
Yeah, definitely. Well, a lot of real estate agents would call this the seller's market, and they wouldn't be wrong when they say that. But something that I've been preaching and coaching to my clients, our clients, as well as our teammates, is that this is really a buyer's market. And the reason it's a buyer's market, because anybody who has bought since probably 2011 has seen their equity in their home skyrocket. Right? And experts are predicting that values are going to continue to climb over the next 5 years. And there's also inflation, right? If anyone's out there who's watching this is renting, one of the worst things that you can do to hedge against inflation is to rent. One of the best things to do is to purchase a home.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. We were just helping a client that sold a house. He was moving out of state and he's living in it for 4 years. And he bought it for around 1.8 and we got him 2.8 less than 4 years later. And when I think about that and when I do the math, it's like he made $1 million living, right?
Right.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's amazing. That's one of the huge benefits of home ownership is not only do you get to collect all of the equity when it's time to sell, but you also get to enjoy living in your own home. You can do your own improvements. You can paint a wall, Pepto-Bismol pink or seafoam green because it's your property. You don't have to get permission from a landlord. But most importantly is what you just talked about, how financial secure home ownership gives to people who do decide to get into real estate and own their own property, whether it's their primary residence or an investment property.
That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And I want to move into your journey a little bit in real estate and how you have purchased properties. But before that, I think we should talk about the fear. And I think a lot of people out there, they're scared of making that move into buying their first home because they're scared they're going to overpay. They're scared that they don't know what they're doing and things of that nature. So can we just talk a little bit about that and what's your advice for people that are fearful? They have the finances, but there's something holding them back.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's a lot of hindrances for people to get into the real estate market, and fear being one of them. And that's a natural human feeling. In fact, my wife and I just closed on a property last week, and during escrow,
Congrats.
well, thank you. I still get cold feet to this day because I'm a human being, and that's just a normal human process to work through when purchasing such a large investment, a large asset. But then what I fall back to is the confidence and the knowledge that I have about where the real estate market is going, and also the value that I got. A buyer's number one fear is overpaying for a property. So there's a ton of fear because buyers don't have the knowledge that they need to in order to feel comfortable and confident. And that's why it's so important to work with an agent like yourself or another top performing agent, because that hand holding, that educational process is so crucial, because it can hinder a buyer from never getting off the fence. And there's a lot of buyers that I have witnessed over the last decade who did want to buy back in 2012, 2013, right? Just sat on the sidelines and literally left millions of dollars on the table by not acting.
Yeah, there's a lot of, we all have that uncle that like, we're driving by a house. Yeah, I could have bought that house for $50,000 30 years ago, right? There's a lot of shoulda, woulda, couldas. And I'm curious a little bit I want the audience to get to know you a little bit more and where all this knowledge is coming from. So can you just share, like, how did you start specifically buying real estate, and what has that done for you in your life?
Definitely. I mean, it has been the key to my financial success. I remember back in 2010 or 2011 of my first purchase, and I had to get creative on how I was going to make this purchase. And back then, short sales were very common, and I did an all-inclusive trust deed where I basically took over somebody's loan because they were in a short sale situation. My friends, my families, all told me not to do it, but because I was an expert in real estate, because I studied the trends, because I knew the data, I was confident that it was a good investment. And long story short, I bought that property for about $1 million and sold it a few years later for $2.4 million. Wow. So that was my first million that I made in real estate. And I'm glad I didn't listen to my friends and my family who weren't in real estate, right? I'm a big Napoleon Hill fan, as you know. Specialized knowledge is one of the principles of success, which basically means, who are you going to for advice? You just got married. Congratulations. Love Lily. Wish you guys the best. But, if you want good marriage advice, don't go to your friends who are divorced, right? You may do some research to see what went wrong, but if you want to have a happy marriage, go to, your friends that are in a happy marriage and say, hey, how did you accomplish that? And it's the same for real estate. You go to the sources that have specialized knowledge, and if you do that, they're able to guide you appropriately.
I love that, James. And I think a lot of times we rely on friends and family for great advice. And I recall, when I wrote my first book about goal settings, I told a friend, and they're like, no, you can't write a book. You can't do that. And I started going back to my own life and thinking, why should I ask somebody that have never done this just because I love them to give me advice? And I think a lot of us do that. We go to our parents, we go to our friends and ask them on advice that they don't know shit about, excuse my language. And I think that's interesting. And going back to, I think what you said, relying on the data, right? And looking at the numbers and see where will this go to make an informed decision.
Yes, definitely. I mean, even the data right now, what's happening right now, besides inflation, is the interest rates, right? At the beginning of the year, we started off at around 3%. You could still probably get mortgage rates, under 3%, whereas now they've jumped up as high as 5%. And a lot of buyers, without correct information, could look at that as, okay, it's a bubble, the residential housing market is going to go down, whereas the experts are still predicting that values are going to increase over the next 5 years. In fact, some of the 7 experts that we study, which include National Association of Realtors, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mac, CoreLogic, on average, they're predicting a 7% appreciation over the next 5 years, and some as strong as upwards of 13%. And we've experienced amazing appreciations over the past few years. Yes, rates are going to slow down prices from appreciating, but it's not going to make home prices decline. And again, looking back at the data, over the past 30 years, when we have seen rates increase, we've also, over the past 30 years, during those times, have seen values increase on average 8%, sometimes upward of 13%, but average of 8% when we do see interest rates incline. The thing that we will see that will decrease based off of history is probably home sales. But this time is unique because this time, unlike the previous 30 years when rates did increase, they didn't have the inventory shortage that we had. They have an average about 4 or 5 months of inventory, whereas in most markets in the United States, and especially in Los Angeles, we're under 1 month. So we have a very big shortage, and real estate values are their number one determined on supply and demand, right? Economics 101. And right now, the supply is very low and the demand seems to keep on increasing, especially as rates go up. People want to get locked in.
Yeah, and I'm so happy when I get to call my clients that bought a year or 2 years ago and just tell them, hey, here's the new market data for your property. Have you enjoyed your home? And most people say yes.
Yeah.
And this is what you made. And I mean, just last year here in LA, in the markets we serve, most of our clients appreciated anywhere between 10 and 20, 25%, right?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, personal story, and there's opportunity everywhere. My wife and I bought a property at the beginning or the end of last year and sold it a month ago, didn't do anything to it. And we bought it for $1 million and we sold it for 1.5 because the real estate market is just on fire right now and there's opportunity everywhere, even in this market. And we will continue to see opportunities and we will continue to see values continue to rise. So what I would say to any buyers out there that are on the fence is get off the fence. Otherwise, it could cost you a lot.
Yeah, love that. And what else have you learned during investing in real estate? If you would give like 2 or 3 nuggets for people to think of when they go out and look for a property that they want to buy.
First and foremost is get into the market, right? Start building a real estate portfolio. Now, I've never run into somebody who said, that has a real estate portfolio that regrets doing it, right? The only regrets that they sometimes have is selling off some of their assets, selling off some of their property. So first and foremost is do whatever it takes to get in, right? Connect with a lender, connect with a professional agent, call Peter, right? Which is essential because specialized knowledge, right? It is so crucial because then you start to gain the confidence, right? Then you get to start getting a comfort level. When you have comfort and confidence, that is going to motivate you to get off the fence. And then there will be a snowball effect that will lead to you closing on your first property. So first and foremost is, take the initial actions. Second is to create a plan. Again, I'll go back to Napoleon Hill. You don't want to be a ship out at sea without a rudder, right? You need to have a plan. If I was going to plan to go to San Diego, I would probably put the address into my GPS system, which would give me directions, aka a plan on how to get there. Well, if I want to be a millionaire in real estate, it is quite simple, but I do need a plan to follow. But also another good reason to meet with a professional because they have helped, and they have created those plans time and time again, so that it's a proven path and a proven process.
Love that. And as far as looking at appreciation for real estate, when we go back and look at the data, pretty much if you keep your property long enough, you're always going to make money, right?
Yeah, I mean it's actually rated real estate the number one investment that an individual can make, and the difference I believe is the stock market and real estate is like 20% higher. Yeah, over time, real estate has overappreciated. I like it much better than any other investment because it's tangible. I can go and stand on the property and say, okay, I own this land. I own this house, right? Whereas stock, it's like I got to go online and it's just some digital numbers and I better hope that the company does well. Whereas with real estate, I get to rely on myself and then, my circle to make sure that I, make the correct investments, that, a smart investment that looks like there's plenty of room for it to continue to grow.
Awesome. And one thing that I just want to ask and see what your opinion is, sometimes for people that are here in Los Angeles, they're looking to buy their first home, they get pre-approved, they have good finances, and then they go and look at homes and you see this small home that looks like shit, I'm sorry to say it. If you come from out of state, you feel like, how can I pay $1 million or $1.5 million for this small little home? So can you just talk about that, and how do we overcome that, especially for people who didn't grow up in LA and don't realize where the actual value is?
It comes back to that path that I'm talking about, real estate. Peter, you're not going to buy your dream house. Most people are not going to buy their dream house, their first purchase. It's a stepping stone, right? Roxanne and I, my wife and I's first home, was not our dream home, but it allowed us to get into the real estate market, right? That was the home that I talked to you about that we made over $1 million with. Yeah, it wasn't our dream home, but that allowed us to then take the next stepping stone, right? And buy, a bigger, and better property in a different location, and then a bigger and better property in a location. That's been our journey, as is most people's journey. But if you don't take that initial step of getting in, or even if you do have a property and you want to upgrade, right, of taking the appropriate steps to continue to upgrade, because if you had $1 million house and it's appreciated 20%, wonderful, you just made $200,000. But if you were to get a $2 million house and it appreciated 20%, right? Now you just doubled, right? Now you have $400,000 of equity. So again, it's having a plan, sticking to the plan, and then executing on it.
Yeah. This is great stuff. Thank you so much, James. Really appreciate you coming on here and sharing your knowledge. And for everybody out there listening, I hope you took some notes. There's some really, really good nuggets here. And stick with us during this season, because we're going to talk about everything you can think of to get into how you buy a home, how you sell a home, how you find a true real estate professional that you can trust, and what upgrades you can do to increase value to your home. With that being said, I just want to thank you for this show. If you liked the episode, please share it with somebody, give us a review, so we can have more people get into real estate and start making their money that way. In the next episode, we're going to talk about how does buying a home work. That's it, guys. I'll see you soon. Thank you for watching and listening to Black Belt in Real Estate. This is Peter Jumrukovski, and on behalf of me and James Suarez with the Suarez team, we would like to say thank you for watching Black Belt in Real Estate. We would love to hear from you, and we would love to earn your business. If you're curious on working with us, please reach out.